like, you know, we're not dating. I've got my own life. You've got your life. Like, there's always going to be a healthy boundary there.
We do tend to, I think, bicker maybe like a married couple or siblings, and you know, it's a different dynamic, but I don't think it's unhealthy.
Because, like, I don't need to make things up to be interesting.
Right.
You know, like, I'm not interested. I don't need to impress strangers with fake stories. Like, that's not my MO.
You know, we had mobsters and tigers and strippers and all sorts of things that other normal people just don't have in their life.
People usually just assume I'm lying or at least embellishing.
I think every family should do a podcast together and talk about all of their trashy stories.
Welcome to another episode of the SOB podcast, the son of a bitch. And I am the bitch, Shannon Livingston. And I'm here with my son, Joe LaBosco. I used to let him introduce himself like a big boy, but he abused that privilege by being a little smartass and sabotaging every single intro. So I am going to give you an opportunity actually to sabotage the whole show today.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So this is going to be your episode. You were bitching and moaning that I was getting too deep and heavy with some of my topics.
Little too preachy, little too real.
Yeah. And so we do want to mix it up. Like, I still am going to be preachy and deep and take myself too seriously.
Yeah.
But we are going to mix it up a little bit with some humor. And I don't know. I have to let you be in control every once in a while, because that's the deal. You're my co-host. And
show doesn't work without both of us.
And you usually have some pretty good ideas. So I don't really know specifically what we're going to talk about today. It's kind of more a broad thing. You told me we're going to discuss the phases of our lives.
The places that we've lived.
Oh, the places,
not just the houses, but you know, like the neighborhood, the area, what we liked, didn't like,
okay,
sort of stuff like that.
All right. So I guess this is a good point for me to just hand it over. You just point when it's my turn to talk.
Okay. So obviously we've moved around a lot, both within the Midwest. And
why is that obvious?
After we lived here, because you were there. It's obvious to you.
Well, it is obvious to me. All right.
You know, and I tell other people.
I didn't know you were speaking to me. I thought maybe you were speaking to the people listening.
Tell other people all sorts of stories. No, I don't have anything to say to them except thanks for listening.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
But we've lived in a lot of different places, and everyone kind of had good and bad things about it. So I just felt like it would be interesting because they all kind of had a lot of different. We've lived in a lot of different settings. We've lived in, you know, big fancy mansions, or at least for short periods of time. We've lived in, you know, small apartments and everything in between.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like it'd be interesting to just kind of break that down and see what your thoughts are.
I mean, we've had a 14-minute preface. Let's go.
So obviously, again, for the people on the show, not everyone else, but well, if you've listened to the past episodes, you know some of this already. But so the first house we lived in together technically was in Chicago, which I don't really have any memory of. And I know there were some issues between you and the people around at the time, but that's not what this one's about. I'm talking more about the aesthetic of the area. So what did you like and not like about living in Chicago?
Well, I moved to Chicago when I was pregnant with you. I didn't have any friends or family there. I did not have a good relationship with your father or his family.
Right.
And so I was very isolated there. And I actually didn't see Chicago as far as the city goes until we moved out. And then I would go back to visit. So that's when I saw Navy Pier and Chedd's Aquarium and, you know, all the stuff that you and I did when we would go back to see your doctors or whatever. So my view of Chicago in the early days was the northwest suburbs and just really kind of the inside of my house. And, you know, I also had some medical issues with you even before you were born. And so I was not on bed rest, but I had to rest. I couldn't be out all the time. Didn't have anything to do anyway. Like I said, I didn't have any friends. It's not like it's easy at 21 to go out, you know, pregnant and make friends. People want to go to a bar. So that's not really what you want to do. So I did not enjoy Chicago when we first lived there. The weather was terrible.
Yeah. It's colder than Kansas City. It's quite a bit bigger.
Yeah. And it was just really a very difficult part of the time in my life. And then, when you were, oh my gosh, I think it was 7 months, maybe I was 7 months pregnant with you, is when we did the first amniocentesis, and they found the cyst, and that just, it kind of led to all of these other things. So my time in Chicago was
Not great.
being pregnant and then being a mom of a special needs kid. There wasn't a lot of going out, making friends, socializing, volunteering, any of the things that I do now.
Right.
Very, very different existence. So, and then at one point we moved from that house into, it was after one of your surgeries, into your grandparents' house. I think they needed some financial assistance and had a big house, and it made sense that we were going to take over part of it or whatever.
Mhm.
Did not make sense. Your grandfather was Sicilian, and he and I did not get along.
Yeah.
So you and I then moved from the bigger house in Mount Prospect
Mhm.
to Grandview, to
Right.
my
Yeah,
parents'
that
house.
was going to be my next thing. Yeah.
And that
so
was December 15th, 1995, that
To
we moved back
96.
to my parents' house. To
So,
December 15th,
1996.
1996. Yeah.
So I don't remember living there either. I do obviously remember spending a lot of time at that house, but as a child, which I did enjoy for a lot of reasons. It's nice to anytime you're a kid and you're being dropped off because you were going out into the city or doing whatever it was you were doing that I'm sure we'll get into in later
Working.
episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But getting dropped off at the grandparents' house, even when they're my grandparents and one of them scary and the other one is teaching piano, was fun because there was just more space than where we were, typically living at the
Mhm.
time. They had a backyard. Sometimes the dog would come over. I get to, see the Rottweiler. That was always fun. They always made pancakes in the morning. They had cable. I got to sleep in your sister's room, have all that space to myself, watch TV all night. So,
Okay, but I thought we were talking about the
so that
places
was
that
fun.
we lived. So
But
let's
yeah,
focus on that.
so living in Grandview, again, I don't really have a memory of. I remember what happened after that, but that phase is, I was too little at that point. So what was that like
What
in
was
the
what like?
mid 90s, going back to the Grandview house?
The town was still fairly nice. It was a working class town, but it
Mhm.
was always well kept up until it wasn't. And once I moved away, I didn't really go back other than to go to my parents' house to take you or pick you up. But I want to focus on the places that we lived and how that has influenced your development
Sure,
or
yeah.
how it affected our lives. I don't want to just focus on my hometown. That's boring. And we lived there for exactly a year, 365
Yeah,
days.
okay,
I
so-
begged them to let us stay, and I asked for a year, and that's what we did.
So,
and then I
yeah.
got another rental house.
So that was when we moved into the house in Waldo, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So that one I remember surprisingly quite well, considering how long ago it was. I remember the house itself. I remember those green shutters. For some reason, that sticks in my head. I remember having a backyard, which was nice. And I remember being in the city, which I really enjoyed that period of time when we were kind of in the thick of everything that was going on. There's a certain vibe and energy when you're in a city that you don't get out in the suburbs that I thought was pretty cool as a child.
Mhm.
And I also remember a lot of food and a lot of people coming over. That was the social house, which I thought was nice. There was always somebody renting out that back room, people hanging out.
Well, and the people that rented out the back room, we had really got lucky with those guys, those
Yeah.
roommates. Two really nice guys that were drummers. Both of them coincidentally were drummers, and
Mhm.
so one of them had a band, and the band would come over, and I would make pans of lasagna or
Was that Mustard Couch?
Mustard Couch was
Yeah.
the name. Yeah, I think they dedicated a song to us or something. I don't
wouldn't
know.
be surprised.
But yeah, I like to cook and I fed everybody. I had the big yard with an herb garden. I took a little piece of shit house and said, "Hey, I'll put new carpet in, I'll put new floors in, I'll paint all the cabinets and, do all the painting inside and really and did all the landscaping and everything else because I didn't have any credit. She didn't have to trust me. and I just needed our own house. And so, yeah, I made a deal with her where I would do all that work. I didn't get any credit on the rent for it. I just put a lot of money into it, but I think I've always tried to do the most I could with the little amount of resource. But then that neighborhood got a little rougher.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Then I don't remember noticing the neighborhood going bad because when you're 4, you don't really have a sense for that. But
Well, and I was also sick at the time. So we were in that
Yeah.
house for about 4 years. I got a really horrible diagnosis. And I was sick and incapacitated for a while. And so then we moved in with Lily
Mhm.
in Midtown.
and that was when we had to get rid of the Rottweiler, correct? Or was
No,
that before that?
That was as soon as we moved into the Kenwood house, I had to get rid of her. There's no Rottweilers in a rental house. I had to sneak her in, and then of course got busted right away and had to get rid of my brother. Let's progress,
I
please.
don't know, I remember spending a lot of time
Let's
with the
progress,
dog.
please.
Okay.
On to the podcast.
God damn.
Focus. This
Yeah,
is your
I'm-
episode. We're
yeah,
talking
I
about
know,
the
and
places
we're-
that we've lived.
I understand that. So then we move into the next house where we have a roommate.
Well, we didn't
and
have a roommate. We
it was
moved
her
into
house.
her house.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there wasn't any room, and
Yeah.
I don't even think we were formally invited, but I needed a place to land because I was afraid that eventually I was going to not be able to make money, and I didn't want to have overhead at that point. So I just needed 6 months or whatever it was. I think 9 months is how long we stayed to figure out my health and my medication and my money. Because at this point, also, I was not able to work. Our whole podcast is really about the things that have happened because you were on Medicaid from your brain surgeries, and I had to work off the grid. So all of these houses, I didn't have a credit report. I didn't have a regular job. I had to make these deals. And then, when things got a little scary for me and I didn't have a safety net, we moved into a house that was way too small for us, but it was closer to your school.
Right.
It was with my best friend, and it was just a soft place to land at that point. I don't even think I was speaking to my parents, and I didn't have anywhere else to go.
I did have fun when we were living there. It felt like
and
longer.
It wasn't awful.
It felt like longer than it was, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of space. But when you're a child, you don't need a lot of space. There was a drum kit, which I enjoyed.
A lot of drummers in my life. I don't know what that's about.
We lived right down the street from the Jazz, which is still open and operating in Kansas City. So
and they also let you play the drums.
Yeah, we'd go down there and they'd let me play drums when the band was there. That was fun. Although I read something about they got in trouble for some health code violations a couple months ago. So maybe we shouldn't have been spending so much time over there. But
20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Anyway, that place was a lot of fun. We did almost get robbed that one time, which if you want to hear about that, listen to earlier episodes. But
that was on the What Would You Do episode.
Yeah,
when the guys were trying to break into the house.
Yeah, so that was when we were living at that house. And that was a cool part of town. It's still a cool part of town. I do go back to some spots in that area every once in a while whenever I'm there. And so, like I said, I enjoyed being in the city even as a small child. And
as a small child, also, you went to schools that were not neighborhood schools. So we could live in the city, and then I would drive you to school.
Right.
But then you got old enough that program was no longer serving you. We were in this tiny house. I got control of my health issues and my money. I got all that straight. And so then we moved over to the Kansas side.
In the suburbs in Olathe, which is still a wonderful town for anyone who lives there. But
especially if you like mom jeans, that place is for you.
Yeah. So that offered stability for sure, because there's a lot less just sketchy activity in a place like that. It was a much cleaner, safer neighborhood. So I understand why that made sense at the time.
Better school.
And a better school. Yeah.
That was
Johnson
the
County has some of the
thing.
best schools in the country, or at least they did. It was a bit of a culture shock. I will always remember getting picked up that first day of school, and you said something about, how did it go? What do you think? And I said, we're all the black kids.
Well, you were afraid. You thought they did something to them. You thought that like you didn't know what had
Yeah,
happened.
well,
to them.
because before that, the school I
Right.
was going to was
It was
primarily black
right.
kids.
And so it really did freak you out. Like
Yeah,
not
right. And
only
then
were
I go
you
to school where
like,
there are no black kids.
right,
And
you weren't like, oh, this is different and everybody looks like me. You were kind of afraid that somebody had come and taken the black children and done something with them.
yeah,
And
they
so
did. They raised the rent.
I had to explain to you that yeah, it was a different situation in there. Nobody was going to be calling you cracker anymore.
But-
I don't even think those kids knew what cracker meant.
No, no. They were more concerned about what church I was going to when we moved to Olathe.
Yeah, they were a little judgmental. So
yeah, so that was a weird period because we had nosy neighbors who did not like us. We had the PTA people who did not like us. Those kids were not nice to me, at least most of them. You know, I made a few friends here and there, but by and large, we were made to feel that we were not welcome.
Well, and you know, we lived in an apartment, and it was nice, but it was the cheapest place in the best school district that I could find. And so I didn't have a husband and I didn't have a regular job, and I was driving a Cadillac and wearing snakeskin boots, and you know, they were all afraid I was going to sleep with their husband. I guess I just wanted to go to the school and help out with the Christmas party.
Well, you did get that gig in Bed Bath & Beyond for a little while, but
yeah, when I was dating Carl and he told me I needed a legit job.
Yeah.
But then I got fired.
Yeah. And that was that. So, you know,
the
area around that was nice. It's still nice. So, you know, we went back there when we took care of my grandfather. There's a lot. I'm just saying that, you know, there's a lot of food, shopping. They have that giant movie theater that we used to go to all the time.
It's a homogenized part of the country.
That was kind of
safe.
cool.
It's nice. The school was nice.
Yeah,
it was
very.
I was phasing out the mobsters and the strip clubs.
Everything was beige. Everyone drove a minivan. Everyone had a stick up their ass. It's not one of my favorite places. I still hate Kansas. Anyway, so after that, we, for several reasons, got an opportunity to move to Florida and landed in Palm Coast in Flagler County, for anyone listening who might know anyone in Flagler County. And
I'm so bored right now listening to this.
You did not. You told me to take the reins.
I know, but tell an interesting story. A bunch of cool shit happened. Like I don't know, but just talk about like the houses or the neighborhoods.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
All right.
Jesus.
I'm impatient. You're a slow talker.
So we moved to Flagler County, where we're to take care of my great grandfather. And
well, I did pick up a husband in that time, so you may want to put that into the story.
You picked up a Jewish husband in when we were still living in Olathe, and so he moved in with us there for a short time, and that was also when we got Zelda. We got the dog in 05. Right. Yeah. 05. And then we moved in January we moved in December and got there to Florida in January of 06. After a long, weird drive through, we had to go down to Texas and then go across. And that was right after Katrina. And so we drove through Louisiana and all the roads were torn apart. And we were in hotels with all these refugees. And
well, the worst part was that
that was very strange.
He was on methadone. And so we had to schedule the whole trip, stopping at different methadone clinics along the way. He had to predetermine that. I mean, this is, before smartphones for the most part. And so the whole trip of moving was picking up his stuff in Texas and then moving to Florida. But along the way, we had to have the dog and the tortoise and the moving truck and stop at the methadone clinic in the morning. So,
and that big bag of fudge that melted.
Yeah, it was a big blob because you put it in your pocket
because it was Christmas.
So that trip was longer because of that. It wasn't just that the roads were bad.
But as an 11-year-old, the fact that we were stopping at methadone clinics, I was not aware of. So that was not part of my experience at the time.
So anyway, we moved.
I did have my Walkman on that trip, which came in handy. I had a lot of good CDs. So we moved to Palm Coast, which was not the first time I've been to Florida because we went to Disney World, but it was the first time, obviously, for me living in Florida, which was kind of cool because, you had the beach right there, but I got over that pretty quickly. You did not like Flagler County. You still don't like Flagler County.
It's old Florida. It's not that developed. It's totally different from Naples.
Yeah.
We we decided where to go in a hurry. We knew we wanted to be in Florida.
It was a placeholder. I get that.
Yeah, Mr. Livingston and I discussed it, where we wanted to be. And Florida was good. He was a film director, and he was doing a lot of work in Florida, in different studios and whatever in Florida. And it was warmer. I have a lot of medical issues that the cold affects. And so unfortunately, your biological father did not want us moving and tried to control that and tried to send paperwork to control that, but
filed in the wrong state.
Did it in the wrong state.
The lawyer said, "Can you move?"
Are you going to tell a story?
Go ahead.
I'm going to tell the story. I don't know.
Well,
I don't know what's going on.
I thought we were
telling the story
up to talking about Palm Coast, and then you're backtracking to why we moved to Palm Coast.
Moved to Florida. Yes, that it makes a difference. I mean, just talking about these houses and what color the fucking carpet is, who gives a shit?
Yeah, go ahead. It's your show.
So it's our show, but I'm trying to get the interesting stuff out of you. And
I was getting there. I was going to talk about.
You already had us moving to Palm Coast. You didn't even say anything about the heroin
because that's
addict
all
husband.
Just family drama, and
that's what the show is about.
No, that's what you want it to be about.
You want to talk about carpet and drapes?
No, that is not what I said. When did I ever bring that up?
Anyway. So we moved to Palm Coast.
We moved to Palm Coast.
Yes.
And you worked at a place on the beach.
My lawyer said you have a 2-week window to respond to this paperwork. And if you can move to Florida within that time, we can respond from your Florida address. Mm-hmm. Can you do that? So we liquidated everything, packed up everything, and moved to Florida within those 2 weeks, secretly in the middle of the night.
Yeah. We did have some help. There were a few people who came to help us load the truck. That's how you tell
a story.
Okay.
That's a little more exciting. Yeah. All right. So now we're in Palm Coast.
So we're in Palm Coast.
I hate it.
You got a job.
I'm getting my real estate license.
Well, but while you're doing that, you got a job selling fried food in a basket to bikers and whoever was coming into town. Which I thought was kind of cool because you'd bring home chicken fingers and stuff.
And not for me, but whatever.
Okay. Again, from my perspective, I'm getting fried food every night, and I get to go to this place on the beach and hang out. So that was kind of nice.
They did have good peel and eat shrimp.
And you made a lot of money during bike week.
Mm-hmm.
And
there wasn't a lot in that whole area, so it was kind of the hippest place there. And it was fun with my colleagues, but it was tough work. I didn't like the town.
Yeah,
and aside from bike week, it was just demanding people.
You do get a little more of a taste of fall in northern Florida, which is something I miss, being down this far south. But what are you gonna do?
So we were there for what, a year and a half until my grandfather passed away.
Mm-hmm. So then Bobby was working down in Naples already. So that just kind of made the most sense. And you did some research, and the schools were good. The neighborhoods were good. And so we packed up and made that 5-hour drive down here.
Well, he was working in Bonita. And when I looked at Bonita and Naples, not knowing anything back then, we decided Naples was the place for me.
Not a surprise.
And so, again, we chose a house that was in the school district that I thought was best for you.
Good old Naples Park.
They just had a shooting there a couple nights ago.
That does not surprise me. So I liked that house for certain reasons. We had the pond with the were there fish in that pond? So we had the pond with the fish. We had the tree out back. I had a backyard again.
It was a water feature with water lilies, not like a pond in the yard.
Okay, yeah. We had a water feature, and then we had a little bench where you could sit and that was a good place for me to just kind of go and relax and do my homework. And there was a lot of space in that place, and it was kind of spaced out. And I don't know, it was nice. I liked that place. But yeah, the neighborhood was not bad, but lower middle class, I guess is probably the best way to describe it.
It's rentals.
And
it's not lower middle class. Just the lots in that place are 2-3 times the amount that my parents' house would be. So
I thought that was just because of location, though.
Yes, because of location, but that doesn't mean that it's lower middle class. If you're paying $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 for a little 2-3 bedroom house, that's
you're a sucker.
Or you own property in Naples Park and you're making money on it.
Okay. Well,
Like
I've
our
got a lot to
landlord.
learn about real estate.
Yes.
But
Tim will teach you.
yeah, great. So we lived in Palm Coast, and I started making friends there because this bus stop was right there, and so that was when I started kind of talking to people and getting things. And then we used to walk down and watch the street races at night, and that was kind of interesting.
You just said Palm Coast. Did you mean Naples Park?
Naples Park.
Oh, you said
Yeah,
Palm Coast.
my fault.
So
So
all
yeah,
right.
Naples
So now we're
Park.
in
I started
Naples and
making
Naples Park.
friends and getting used to the school because I figured, okay, we're gonna be here for a while. And then my stepdad left. Or wait, no, did he leave when we were still in Naples Park? Or was that after that?
Yeah.
So he left Naples Park.
'Cause then I put us into a decent house.
And then, yeah. So and then you found a new
he
place.
found that house.
That's right. Yeah, he picked that place. 707. I remember that. So then you found another place in a gated community.
By that time, I had my real estate license, and
Yeah.
I had been working for a little bit. And so, so we moved on up, and we moved into a nicer neighborhood,
Nicer neighborhood, gated community, Autumn Woods, very nice place. And at that point, I could walk to school, which was nice. It was not a short walk, but I could walk to school, at least middle school. And so then that was where I met Alex, who's still one of my friends to this day, because he lived right across the street from the school, and I would walk clear across from the other side of the neighborhood. But so then I started making a little more friends, having sleepovers, and we had the space to kind of have fun. Again, we had a backyard. The dog liked to go out and get lost and do all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that was different for sure, being in a place like that. I'd never lived in a gated community before. They had all sorts of weird rules, but overall a good experience, I would say. And then after that, we moved to Bermuda.
We moved into an apartment. We downsized,
Right,
because
yeah.
I was in real estate in the worst
Right,
possible
yeah,
time
So the market
to
crashed.
be in real estate. And so I started doing marketing, but I started my own company and knew it was going to be a while. And again, just like when we moved into Lily's, I knew, okay, it's time to downsize. Like I need to cut my overhead. And so we moved back into an apartment,
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't bad.
Which wasn't bad.
Wasn't great,
They had
but not
that
bad.
leaky air conditioner that made the carpet wet, which was kind of annoying, but that's, anyone who's had an apartment's probably dealt with that. I made friends there too, who you threatened fairly quickly if they were to get me into trouble, because I was in high school by that point, and they were
okay. So, but
doing
let's tell this
things.
story properly. So we go from a gated community.
Yeah.
We downsized to the apartment,
Mm-hmm.
and the people changed. I mean,
the
let's
vibe
be
was
fair about it.
definitely different.
So you have new friends. You're starting, to get older.
I was
and
a freshman. Yeah.
These kids were starting to have cars. And so I think after a week or two of you talking about, this kid and that kid, I said,
Mhm.
all right, I need to meet all of them. Have them all here. You can't hang out with these kids without me knowing who they are. So
Yeah.
have them all here on this day at this time. And I think there were 3 or 4 of them. And you lined them up on the couch. And I said, whatever you guys are doing, that's your business. But my kid doesn't do that. So if you're going to be drinking and smoking or being, doing stupid shit out in a car or whatever, then you need to drop him off or call me to come get him, and I won't get in your business. But if you get my kid into trouble, then I will send a large, angry Italian man to your home, not to tell your parents, but to break your legs, and you will walk with a limp for the rest of your life. Do you understand me? And they kind of looked down, and I had to say, no, I need an eye contact and a yes, ma'am. And they've been yes, ma'am, and me ever since that day.
Yeah,
Isn't
they
that
were
funny?
all very helpful. They would help you bring in the groceries and
Yes. Because I
clean
wanted
the
them to
house.
understand being a single mom, being a woman, doesn't mean that I'm a punk. It doesn't mean that
Yeah.
you're in charge. It doesn't mean that anything goes. This isn't a party house. I'm not stupid.
In hindsight,
I
that
wasn't from
probably
Naples.
was a good way to handle that.
Yes, absolutely. Just right up front. I don't get up in your business, but don't you dare cause any problems over here.
So,
And we did have one bring a stolen bike to the door, which you wanted to take possession of, and I had to explain the situation to you.
Yeah, well, yeah.
He just wants to keep it in our garage.
Yeah. Well, then they all found girlfriends and moved out, and their whole thing fell apart. But that was also where I met Joshua, who at the time I did not get along very well with. But then everyone else moved out, and so then we started hanging out and eating Oreos and watching that 70 show after school, and then we moved again.
You're leaving out another man. So while I was marketing, I took on a client who was a very well-known man in town, and we're just going to tell that story another time. I'm going to save that for another episode. But he moved in with us in this apartment, and there wasn't a lot of room, and so we needed another
space.
Yeah, we needed another place. And so then we moved again.
And that was Bella Vita the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then we moved into a bigger, slightly nicer place that in a neighborhood that we still live in a different unit, which is kind of funny. So we moved in there. Nice neighborhood. No real issues except for that time I got hit by a truck waiting for the bus in the morning.
You were a dumbass sitting on the curb with your legs hanging out.
Every kid, they
I
all
had
sat
to
on
call
the curb.
my friend at the sheriff's office and have him help. And then by the time I hear the story, I had to apologize to him for my kid being a dumbass.
It was 6:15 in the morning. They were all sitting on the curb.
Still,
his turn
they're
was
not all my kids.
He made too tight of a turn. That's all I'll say about that. I still have road rash. Anyway. So we moved into that neighborhood, and so that was where I finished high school and wanted to kill your man friend at the time.
Yeah. So we were there for, I don't know, a few years.
A couple years.
I had to Baker Act him. He got out of the house, changed the locks, signed a new lease with new owners, and then he started and then he had a stroke and did not heal well, and started stalking me and you and coming by the house, because this was no longer in a gated neighborhood. We had gates at the apartment and before that,
so he could drive up in that big stupid Escalade and do whatever the hell he wanted. 12
times a day with his crackhead friend that, coming by and walking around the condo. It was a first floor unit, and he had lived there, so it's not like he didn't know the layout. So he was coming by a lot. I was dating somebody new and absolutely rushed that relationship. I knew it was probably never going to last anyway. And so moved again to get away. We loved that place, that condo, but moved again to get away from the boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend.
So then we moved in with the new boyfriend, and he had a beach house.
Yeah.
The beach house was cool. The beach house I liked because it was definitely a good place for someone my age at the time. It was a good place to have people over and take pictures and hang out. And we had
everybody else liked the beach a lot more.
Everybody loved the beach and the beach house.
We didn't go to the beach.
I did not go to the beach a lot. I went to the beach at night, more often than I did during the day because it was right there. But yeah, during the day, packed with people, hot as shit. Not my thing.
And when you live on the beach, when you're right there on the water, you can stay in the air conditioning and look at it.
Right, exactly. So I got all the view of the beach and the water until they let the
I can watch
grow.
TV. I can have a cocktail.
But
I can do everybody I want to do.
Well, and everybody would talk about, don't you love the balcony? I was like, yeah, but I don't get to. He's always up here on the balcony. I don't, I only really, I liked the house, but I really liked the house when there was no one in it.
Yeah, me too. And the house was okay, but I'm not a beach person.
Yeah.
Property does not really impress me that much, and while it was nice, it was not the nicest unit in Naples for sure.
Yeah,
I came from the world of real estate, and so
it wasn't our house.
And it wasn't our house.
None of that stuff was ours.
And I always I thought it was so funny that people thought like it was such a privilege for us to live there when it was not my idea. It's not something I asked for. And he was living there paying the bills with or without us. And he's the one who wanted us there and, and asked us to be there.
Well, and it was kind of cold, just aesthetically. Everything was very plain and white.
Right. And there was nothing of ours. And so again, it felt more like
a museum.
Stepping stone, in our lives, because it was his house.
Yeah.
And we didn't have, things on the wall, or, I didn't.
And we were in the one part of town where no one delivered.
Yeah,
So
because
it
when
was
you're right on the
impossible
beach,
to
they don't
get a
bring you
pizza
anything.
or Chinese food or so. Yeah, I always had to be running somewhere to get something, and so that was that. I was 5 minutes from work, which was nice, but
Yeah. So that whole shit show of a relationship, which will be another podcast episode, that ran its course, and
we moved out on the 4th of July.
yeah, well, I
It
guess
was
so.
raining and 100 degrees at the same time.
But could not wait to get out.
Yeah, so that was nice. And then you found a unit right back in the neighborhood we used to live in. Except this one's on the 2nd floor, which is kind of cool.
And without going like really deep into, that relationship or that man, it was particularly at the end really, really unpleasant. He was a drinker. He was full of rage.
Yeah, I spent most of the time just locked in my room.
And
which at that point, what's the point
by
of
the
being
time that I told him that we were leaving, because I was looking for property for quite some time before that.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find a place in Naples
Right,
during high season.
It's not like we hadn't talked about it.
But I remember, when I told him that we were leaving, and he got so angry about it because he thought that beach house was just, how could anybody want to leave here? And he didn't understand because you're here.
Yeah, right.
That's the whole deal. What do you not get?
With your man cave that's not really a man cave.
Yeah, again, that's another episode.
There's an office with a big TV.
But my point is, because it had been so stressful,
yeah,
particularly at the end.
Yeah, I didn't care about the house anymore.
No, that's not my point. Let me make my point.
Okay.
I wanted to go back to where we had been before because it had been good before the other guy came along and screwed it up. We did like it. Yeah. It's a nice part of town.
Safe bet.
It's convenient. Right. It's not pretentious, but it's safe and clean and all of that. And you don't do well with change. And so I felt super guilty about the stalking and then the angry alcoholic and, finding another place that was going to be our home together with my promise to you that, okay, no more of these crazy motherfuckers are coming in here and, or forcing me into any other premature cohabitation situations. And so that is why I went back to Bella Vita. There was a lot of emotional reason for that. It's not just because it's, a nice neighborhood.
Well, I appreciate that. And so far that has been the case. I haven't had to, butt heads with anybody. I'm the man of the house.
Yeah. But you missed the mansion, the fun house.
The mansion, yeah. So
that'll be a good way
at
to
the
wrap
time,
it up.
yeah, we never really lived there.
This guy
technically
was so awful. He's about to tell you how great this house was, and we still left.
So the guy who owned the beach house also had a house in St. Louis that he has since sold. Not really St. Louis.
Doesn't matter. Move on.
Anyway, it was a very big house.
He said it was bigger than it was.
It was pretty big.
Typical male. Yeah, I know. I was involved with
bigger
the
than
real
any
estate
place I've seen down here.
But he would always add about 3,000 square feet onto it. I'm not kidding.
I think what he told me was 16,000.
Right, and it wasn't. It was closer to 13.
Okay, well, it was a big house.
Yeah, there was outdoor space.
You could get lost in this place very easily. But for someone in his 20s with lots of friends, it was perfect.
12 bathrooms.
Yeah, 12
so everybody
bathrooms.
Could poop at the same time.
There was a home theater. There was a pool that we didn't really use because it was always too cold. But there was a golf simulator. There was a pool table. There was, of course,
air
there was
hockey,
a bar. There was air
Pac-Man.
hockey. Yeah, all sorts of stuff to do, places to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really did enjoy that place. I'm going to miss that house.
Well, and it was seasonal. So for me, it wasn't so much, the size or even the home theater or whatever, because the picture sucked in the home theater. It sounds great to be rich until you're really living it out.
You have to maintain everything.
And then you're like, oh, this isn't as great.
And the doorknobs were falling off and there were wasps everywhere.
Yeah, he didn't maintain things that well either.
But that was a nice place to hang out and have parties for sure. There was a night where some of his kid and some of her friends had like a New Year's Eve party that got kind of out of control. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, she was good.
Yeah.
If I could have just taken her and not him, that would have been fantastic. We could have just had little get-togethers in the house that watched the change of seasons and made s'mores.
And it allowed me to have a place to go when I wanted to go back to Missouri and not have to pay for staying somewhere and enjoy the seasons and, you know, just being closer to home. So I did enjoy that, but that phase is over and hopefully I'll have my own mansion in the Midwest someday.
And people do treat you differently when you have that level of money or they think you have that level of money.
Absolutely.
You know, people would come, service people to the house to fix the fountain or alarm system or whatever. And they would treat me differently. They would quote me different prices. It was eye-opening for sure.
There was a time where two of my friends and I were basically stranded in that house because I had lost the car keys in the snow in the backyard, which they then found 3 months later and still worked.
And think about if you would have been 12 years old and somebody said to you, you're going to be stranded in this mansion with video games and all this other stuff for a couple of days, you would have been like, oh, wow, that's the coolest thing ever. And yet that happened to you and you thought it sucked the whole time.
I thought it sucked because all I was thinking about was where are these goddamn car keys?
Yeah, they were out in the snow.
You know, how can I fix this problem? And that still bothers me that I could have just kept looking and probably would have eventually found them and we could have gotten out of there. But what are you going to do?
So anyhow, those are all of our houses.
So those are all the places that we've lived. And do you have a favorite?
Do I have a favorite? Probably the treehouse that we live in now. I just think that, you know, I do like the neighborhood and all of that, but it's the phase of life for me. It's the fact that no one is there messing it up. You know, you and I are good roommates. You just kind of do your thing and I do mine. And
I've got my room set up how I like it. I've got, you know, everything's pretty so chill.
For me, it's not the house. It's what's going on in the house and who's in the house. So even though we have been in, you know, city neighborhoods too, and you skipped the plaza, we lived on the plaza too, but, you know, even though we have been in kind of, let's say, shadier, more colorful neighborhoods,
which can be fun in its own way.
Different characters of the neighborhood.
Throwing crab apples at passing cars.
I'm sure we were some of them. Yeah. You know, all the way up to mansions and gated neighborhoods and all of that. It's always about the phase of life for me.
Yeah, well, and that's what I thought would be interesting about this episode is because we really kind of run the spectrum of your places to live and how to manage that. So that.
And you learn what you like and you don't.
Right. And that is one thing
I don't
that
need as much space as I thought I did.
Everybody thinks they want a huge house with all this stuff. And then you realize that you have to manage all of that and pay for it. And
if it's just you, you're not really enjoying it.
Right.
And if there's a psychopath in the house with you, you're not enjoying that either.
Always push them down the stairs.
I think that is a good place to end it, which no one did go down the stairs, by the way. We left before that happened.
So that was kind of a good short timeline of the different places we've been. And, you know, hopefully someday we can turn that into a wider presentation.
I don't know what that means, but all right. So thank you for listening, everyone. I'm going to say goodbye. And Joe, you can take us out.
Peace out.